Shopify is a global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business and sell more with less effort thanks to the Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/redcircle, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/redcircle now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/redcircle.
Hello, my gentle and beautiful audience. This is Gabe S. Dunn here. I'm sure you've noticed that the past few episodes, the audio on my end has been less than ideal. That's because I realized that I had multiple microphones on on my Zoom, which is what I use to record. And the lovely Melisa noticed and fixed it. So my apologies for the audio as of late. I also want to mention that I know there have been more ads. I need money from this podcast. That's it. You guys get it. I really try to keep the ads aligned with my morals and ethics. And so if you notice any that are not, please message me and let me know. In the meantime, you boys gotta eat. Also, I'm really excited for some episodes that are coming up because I'm furious about the state of the world. And I will be launching a Substack in the next couple weeks, maybe in a week, called 1,000 Natural Shocks, which is going to be about class division and being burnt out by capitalism and the everyday stresses of life in this hellscape. I hope to get very political over there and also provide some comfort in this time or a place to be angry. 1,000 Natural Shocks is a reference to an essay I wrote on Patreon that people seem to really love. It was about capitalism and my own suicidal ideation. So because of that and because of the wonderful response to that, I am going to be launching the 1,000 Natural Shocks Substack. So I hope that you will follow me over there. You can find more at 1000naturalshocks.substack.com or at my Instagram at Gabe S. Dunn.
You got problems that you ought to be concerned with. Moolah! You don't know how you're supposed to earn it, or what to do with it, or how to keep it. You're a freak with a dark, shameful secret. But you're not the only one. Get your hidden financial fears with a blast of sun. Now your healing has begun. It's Bad with Money with Gabe S. Dunn.
Hello and welcome to Bad with Money, a show about finances and feelings where we don't talk down to you. I'm your host, Gabe S. Dunn, and with me today we have Carter Cofield. Can you tell my audience who you are and what you do?
My name is Carter Cofield. I am a CPA and tax strategist, and I help entrepreneurs live tax-free.
Okay. CPA is often used as a stand-in for boring job. So what's your story and why did you become a CPA?
You are right. You are extremely right. So I became a CPA because I graduated high school during the Great Recession, and I watched all of my family and friends become unemployed. And, I really didn't want that for myself or my future family. So in high school, I decided to Google what job has the lowest unemployment rate. And literally CPA was number one. Even during one of the worst recessions, CPA had a 0% unemployment rate because regardless of how the economy is doing, two things are going to happen. People are going to die and people have to pay taxes. The only thing about dying is people only die once, but people have to file taxes every single year. So for that reason, I decided to pursue a career in accounting. And to your point, Gabe, it's a very, very traditionally boring career. And what you'll learn about me soon is I have the exact opposite personality. I am an extroverted extrovert. I am a Leo and I love talking. And so it was a tough start to the career, but I eventually made it work for me. I had to fight a lot of imposter syndrome. I had to fight a lot of systemic issues within the space, but I was able to come out on the other side and build a pretty significant brand for myself and bring a lot of positive light to the accounting and tax world.
What were the initial problems of being in the CPA environment?
Yeah, so being a African-American male in a predominantly white space, there's always going to be some genuine disconnect there. So I started out in one of the big four accounting firms. I remember like it was yesterday, one of my first week at work, the office had about 2,000 people, probably 50 Black people there total. And one of the first comments one of my coworkers made was, "Hey, I see you got your facial hair going. What you plan on doing with that?" And I was just like, okay, I plan on like keeping it and growing it. And it was basically a way of saying like, hey, in this office, in this industry, we don't really use, like our people to have facial hair. So I was like, so that was like the first like jab. And then I remember about 6 months into work, I had purchased a new car. And it was like my dream car for that age. And being in accounting, you sometimes have, especially if you're in audit, you have to go to the client's office sometimes to do the work. And I remember being so happy, Gabe, so happy about saving my money diligently through college, through my first couple months of working, and be able to buy the car of my dreams back then. And my first day driving the car to work, the senior on the engagement saw me get out the car and he was like, dude, like, it's a nice car. And I was like, thank you. And he was like, it's really not normal, or it's really not tradition for someone, a freshman in the space to have a better car than the partner on the job. And he was like, if you wouldn't mind, could you park the car maybe a couple lots over? It's just really not a good look for, you have a better car than a partner on the job. And mind you, it's Chicago in the middle of winter. I can't park far away and have to walk into the office every day. And so this little things like that really, it's already hard adjusting to going from a college student to like your first big boy job. But with those issues as well, it just really became more difficult than it needed to be. And I found myself fighting with imposter syndrome on top of fighting with adjusting to be in my first corporate job. So all those things at the beginning really made it hard on me at the initial output of my career, but it just what didn't kill me made me stronger.
It's interesting to not want to allow for differences in the workplace or allow for opportunities for people to relate to you or feel like they're getting a tax accountant that might understand their life versus being like, no, you have to fall in line and be exactly what everyone thinks a CPA should be, especially, not an extrovert. I'm also an extrovert. I'm a Gemini. We're insufferable. So it's, to make it seem like you have to kind of be drab and look a certain way or behave a certain way. It reminds me also of, we did an episode a long time ago about the work culture in Korea and the idea that you can't go home until your boss has gone home. And if your boss wants to go out to have a drink, you gotta go out to have a drink. It's like interesting to say, you can't have that car because the partner doesn't have that car. A car might be important to you and not to him. He might have a better house.
Exactly. And so what I found is that in a space of enormous tradition, a lot of people are not willing to stand up for what they believe in. And I'm a firm believer that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So, and my parents instilled that in me at a fairly young age. So I actually fought back against what they wanted me to become. Because what I found out is this. I remember being on the job and watching the manager on the job. Because the manager, you have to be in public accounting for about 5 years to make manager. The manager who I quote unquote looked up to went to the partner's office in the middle of busy season to ask him, is it okay for him to leave the office at 8:00 so that he can go on this blind date? I overheard the conversation. The partner said, of course you can go. Just make sure you're back by 11. And I just looked over, had one of the greatest epiphanies of my life, which was, if I don't want the life that the person ahead of me has, maybe I should do something about it right now.
Did you find the work enjoyable of sitting down and auditing?
No. There's a fine line between doable and enjoyable. But here's the thing, environment is such a unique concept because you could become a slave to your environment. If everybody else in the environment says that it's the norm not to be happy, and it's the norm to work to midnight, it's the norm to come in at 7 in the morning. If these are the only people you see and they're saying that's the norm, you in your human nature will want to adopt the norm of your surroundings. And so in that season, it felt normal. But then once I had the revelation and the courage, if I'm being frank, to quit my job, I was like, oh, wow, they were brainwashing us to believe that was okay. That was not okay, right? And so I'm just grateful I got out of there in time to pursue a career that made me happy.
When you left, what were you leaving to do?
Yeah, so I remember the day I quit like it was yesterday. Because the morning of, I mustered up the courage to quit. I was like, all right, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to quit. And then I was like, well, I can't quit before I have some coffee. So let me grab some coffee and then I'll come back to my manager's office, let them know I'm going to quit. And then an hour passed, like, well, it would be irresponsible to quit without checking my email first, right? Like, let me at least check my email before I quit because I don't want to leave them with all these emails. Then it's like 11:30. I'm like, well, I can't quit on an empty stomach. I should probably get something to eat before I quit, right? I should get something to eat before I quit. And then next thing you know, obviously that spiraled. And then next thing you know, the end of the day happened and I didn't quit that day. I almost talked myself out of it. But then the next day I came with a little bit more intention. And I remember talking to my senior, actually one of my favorite people at the job, at that senior. And I asked her to come to lunch. So I want to talk to her about something. And then we got to lunch. I kind of just laid it out on the line. I told her like, hey, I'm not happy here. I want to pursue a career where I can help people that look like me and small business owners that have the same passion I have save on taxes. This is something I believe will not only benefit me, but it will help the people that are underserved. Because our company, we just help big other corporations or super wealthy people, save on taxes, become more wealthy. That doesn't fulfill me. And I want to chase what fulfills me. I expected there to be like this big, outlash on me quitting, especially in the time I decided to quit. And she looked over at me and she said, I wish I had the courage to do what you're about to do.
Really? Interesting. And so then you said, okay, I'm going to start this more flashy thing.
No, it actually wasn't flashy. It was more of I wanted to create a CPA company that did tax strategy for small business owners. Mm-hmm. So I noticed there was a lot of small business owners in my neighborhood. As a small business owner, you understand when you go into small business, you go in to do something that you love to do, but then you're then surprised at all the things that you don't like doing that you then have to do.
Very recently, I used Indeed to get hired for a part-time job. The employer put their job listing up on Indeed. That's where I found it. I applied through Indeed and I got the job. Indeed made the hiring process so easy. I was able to search for all kinds of jobs based on my skills and being able to look at really easy to read descriptions from the jobs about what they were looking for in a candidate. If I needed to hire someone again, I would absolutely use Indeed. And I also have been telling everyone when they've been saying that they want to look for a job or they don't know where to find a job, I was like, you got to use Indeed. I've literally told like 4 people like, oh, I found this job on Indeed. That's where you should look if you're looking to find a job. And the job I was looking for, they needed someone really quickly because they were growing so fast. So they needed to hire the right person very fast, and it was so important. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. I sincerely love Indeed. I went on there. It was incredibly easy. I literally got hired in September for a job actually using Indeed. I know this is a podcast ad, but I mean it. I really did use Indeed. I really do recommend Indeed. It all happened so fast and I didn't even have to really stress. I found what I wanted. I got the job. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. And if you're looking to hire, you need to use Indeed because you'll find people like me. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Just go to Indeed.com/badwithmoney right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
I moved to New York first, then LA. I was like, I'm an artist. I want to write scripts. I want to write stuff. So I'm like, oh, I'm, living like that. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm not even a screenwriter. I'm a fucking small business.
You need to set up your LLC, and then you need to get a business bank account, and then you need to become an S corp at some point. Then you need to do payroll. Then you got to pay these people. And he's like, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to be a creative and write scripts, but all these other things come with the journey you embarked on. And I saw this happening, and I said, I don't know anybody out there that's serving these people. So let me go out and start serving these people.
What businesses in your neighborhood were on your mind?
So when you start, at least for me, you could give me your insight. My client avatar was anybody that had a pulse, right? Like when you start a business, you just like, anybody that says they want my help, that says they need my help, I am going to help those people. So when I started out, it was like, if you have a business, if you're embarking on your business journey, I'm the guy. I'm going to help set up your paperwork. I'm going to help do the tax strategy and the filings and stuff for your business. And obviously that evolved over time to become a more niche audience. But if I'm being honest, it was whoever was willing to work with me, because, it's scary. You need money. You just left a secure job and you don't have that security anymore. So it's really like, how can I just help whoever needs my help, so that I can, one, pay bills, but I can then start to have an impact.
And two, while you're also starting a small business.
Exactly. So I am my client. I'm learning in real time what their pain points are and what they're going through and the confusion. Because I'm like, if I have these questions, I know for a fact that other people have these questions as well.
What's the most confusing thing?
Something I reflect on a lot is what's the biggest mistakes that people make.
Sure.
That could be due to a lack of understanding or confusion. Number one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they don't understand that there needs to be a clear delineation between you and the business. Okay. Yes. So let's talk about that. What I mean by that is that you should have an entity that's set up outside of you. So Gabe Dunn is the person, but Bad With Money is the business, right? Mm-hmm. And so we need to separate the two. And the way we best separate that is to incorporate the business. That can be an LLC, S Corp, C Corp partnership, depending on where you are in business. You got to structure that. Once you incorporate the business, it's now its own entity. And it is, instead of using your social security number, we get a EIN number, which is the business's social security number. And now we have this incorporated business, and now we have this EIN number. So now our business can stand on its own, and we can stand on our own. Mm-hmm. Now, if this is set up, we need a bank account for the money to come into, because what we don't want to do is have the money from the business come to our personal account and our personal and business expenses coming out of the account, because then we start commingling funds, and that is a CPA's nightmare. So if you care about your accountant at all, please hear me clearly. Separate the business expenses and income from yours. And I think those first 3 steps are the steps that most new small business owners don't take. And it ends up causing them a lot of headaches and a lot of potential liability on the back end, because they don't set it up on the front end.
You have to pay more taxes because you're yourself and making the business income, and you're not getting the benefits of being a business.
So you must have went through this on your own, I see.
Oh my God. It was, I came to LA, and me and my partner that we do our YouTube and our podcast together and stuff, her father had us make an LLC early on. That was invaluable. None of that would have occurred to me from my own education at all. But that's because I was like, I don't have enough money to be a business. That's insane. Like I have $50. Like, you want me to be a business? And it's gone through ups and downs. But then also when I started making money on my own, my manager at the time was saying that I needed to incorporate and be an S Corp. And I think that has been very valuable to me. But I also, the S Corp has had a lot of money, then no money, and then also I realized when you make a film, every time you make a film, you should make an LLC for that film, which I also didn't really know. And I resent all of it. I resent it. I hate it. I don't want to hear from my tax professional. It's a nightmare.
It's so funny that you say that, because I actually moved to LA, I would say 4 or 5 years ago. And when I moved to LA, I obviously ran into a lot of creatives out there. Amazing people, like super dope, super amazing people. The scary thing about creatives is that you get paid a lot of money or no money. It's really fair. It's like not a lot of in between. Like you can go from no money to like Netflix cutting you a check for $200,000 for your script. They might not even produce the show, but they'll pay for the script with XYZ. And so for a season, I actually was a business manager for a lot of creatives out there. And they were actually my favorite clients because they were just naive in a great way about money. And they were like, I just need you to tell me, like, am I going to be okay or not? I'm like, Netflix just cut you a check for $250,000. You're going to be fine. Like,
well, but then you got to pay taxes on it. The problem is they cut you a check for $200,000 and then you don't work for like 8 years. And that's got to last the whole time. But also, I've become, anytime I see someone win money on a game show, I'm like, that's a fucking nightmare.
That 1099 is coming very soon. Yes.
We did an episode of this show about people who win money on game shows. And I talked to a friend of mine who won some money on Jeopardy. And he was like, yeah, I had no idea that they were going to come for that money. And I was like, it just sucks.
Yeah, it's more common than you think that people have no idea. Like, as you know, like lottery winners have a substantially higher chances of being worse off after the money than they were before the money. And a large portion of that is because they don't understand that 30 to 40% of the advertised dollars you're not getting. So if you won $1 million, you get to start thinking like you're a millionaire. No, you're not. 300 plus, depending on where you state you live in, $400,000 is going to the IRS. But the problem is you, and get this, and the people around you also heard and thought that you were getting $1 million. So you get to spending like you got $1 million, then people get to acting like you got $1 million, and you look up, now you spent $700,000, but now you owe $400,000. You don't have that money left over to pay. And so like taxes are everyone's, and I repeat, everyone's largest expense. And if we can do our job to legally eliminate that expense, how much better would your life be? How much better would your finances be? How much better would your investing ability be if we were able to cut down or eliminate your number one expense?
Yeah, I always feel weird about that, though, because you're talking about legally, but often it'll be the people who have the most money who can hire, not to say you, but, people in big business, let's say, can hire someone to eliminate their taxes. Meanwhile, someone who doesn't have that access is paying taxes. And then also I'm like, well, I had, I did an episode about Warren Buffett, who might be my enemy and a one-sided enemy. I dug into him and I find that a lot of people who want to be tax-free at that level, it's because they say, oh, well, I'm going to, be a philanthropist and give the money away. And I think that is a power trip because what you want to do is control where you give your money. You want to say, well, I want to give my money to good Christians and I don't want, poor people of color to be getting my money so that they can buy food. I want to give it to this mega church. Which it looks generous, but what it actually is getting people to try to curry your favor or donating to organizations that you personally believe in, which again, on paper is good, but in actuality just makes you control where the money goes so that it goes to places that often end up being sort of racist or maybe a tax deduction for you, but not an organization that actually helps or does anything. Like Warren Buffett's kid has a wildlife foundation, and that's lovely. But part of me is like, he's giving the money to his own kid in a way that is a philanthropy. Do you know what I mean? And I started following it and I was like, this fucking guy.
And I think so. Gabe, I love that you brought this up, and I want us to stay here for a second. I think it's going to be invaluable to the listeners. Okay, so I have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
Knowing that, right? Knowing what Warren Buffett is doing and having your eyes open to the power that he has and the type of strategy that he's implementing to be able to pay his foundation, to let his kid own the foundation. He could pay his kid a salary from the foundation and use that money however way they want to, right? And these tax strategies. Now that you know what's possible, like we have two options, right? Like we can get mad at him for doing it, or we can take notes and try to put ourselves in position so that we can do it for the foundations of our choosing.
There's two schools of thought on, this show versus other money podcasts. Both have their merits. I think there's a mindset of, well, this is all sort of negative and not negative, but like, then it's just taking the blueprint that is perhaps unethical to do ethical things versus saying that this is all unethical and upending the system. And there's two different, especially I think among marginalized people, there's two schools of thought there that come up a lot, like financial feminism or people. I think one thing that's been really cool is in the last few, I've been doing this show since 2016. In the last 4 or 5 years, the number of Black women financial advisors is noticeably like higher. There's a woman I had on, and she said her Facebook group for Black women talking about money has like 75,000 people in it. That's a huge difference. So part of me is like, this is great. And the other part of me is like, I gotta burn down a Bank of America. It's very, you know what I mean? It's tough, especially like in this political climate. There's not to discredit either side, but it is an interesting thing that I'm watching happen now in a group of people that historically didn't have that situation. Even I'm trans. I interviewed trans financial advisors, which by the way, there's 12 people now. Incredible. Even then, there were people who worked within the system and considered themselves neoliberal. And then people who were like, I'm a radical and I want to work outside of it.
This is a very complex conversation. And what I try to distill it to the simplest form, right? And when I ask people questions, the question is this: do you trust the government more to delegate and allocate your money? Or do you trust yourself more to delegate or allocate your money?
Yeah, it's a conversation that's come up a lot here.
And so I don't know about you. I'll speak for myself. I trust me way more than I'll ever trust the government for how to distill and spend the money that I pay in taxes. So the way that I encourage people to look at it is that you can give 30 to 40% of your money to the government every year, or you can keep that 30 to 40% and use it for causes that you care about the most, right? And so because some people think it's unethical not to pay taxes. It's unethical not to pay taxes and not do something good with the money that you're saving on taxes. Because all the tax code is a rule book that teaches you how to avoid paying taxes. Let's be very clear there. Our government is lazy. And they said this, okay, cool. This is why we came up with the tax code. We want people to do the things that we want them to do. If you do the things that we want you to do, create jobs, purchase real estate, help with affordable housing, donate to charities. If you do the things we want you to do, you can keep your money and distill it the way you want to. If you don't do the things that we want you to do, we're going to penalize you. We're going to take your money and we're going to deploy it in the way that we want to. So everybody has that choice. It is, are you going to exercise your right to take advantage of that choice? And that's up to, everyone listening.
Yeah. It's hard, especially with this government, because ideally there would be, the people could say to the government, we want it allocated here. There's also people that I spoke to that are sort of tax conscientious objectors, not necessarily people that use the tax code to be tax free, but people that live specifically under an income where they do not have to pay taxes because, or what is it called? It's a war tax activist or something, where as long as the government is funding war, they will not be paying taxes. Some people, they go to jail. Other people just kind of live specifically under that number so that they never feel that they are contributing to something that they don't want to be contributing to. It's hard because ideally the government would be one way. And instead, that is true that you don't really get to decide if your money bombs another country or if your money goes to it's whatever this particular administration wants it to go to. So I don't know, Elon Musk's hairpiece or whatever.
Yeah. I just think I believe it's power in taking control of your life. I think it's power in taking control of your dollars. I think it's power of understanding you have a control and a hand in this fight and a foot in this race. So what I try to encourage people to do is take your life and your money into your own hands, and you can deploy it in ways that you think are going to help the causes that you have the most. Because as much as we want to help the causes that we want to help, it's really hard to make a difference without money. Let's be honest. It's really hard to make a difference without money. And what scares me the most, especially if I'll speak to, people of African-American descent. I heard some people say they would rather not increase their income so that they can stay on affordable housing and stay on food stamps and stay underneath the income threshold where they don't pay taxes, just so they can prove a point. And it's like, you're doing what the system is designed to. You're buying into the system's way of handcuffing you. It's not by mistake that they put an income threshold on giving you food stamps. It's not by mistake they put an income threshold on giving you affordable housing, because they would rather you sit in comfortability and let them take care of things than to become a person of value and earn the money and earn the power to actually make real change. And I hope with the sincerest of my heart that people recognize that and decide that you're not going to be a statistic, and you have more power within you, and you have the ability to take control of your life, but also drastically impact others.
Yeah, I don't know if it's lazy or comfortability, but I think it's something that could be taken away from you at any time if that's something that stops being funded. Yeah, it's just something that can be taken away from you, and there's not really any rhyme or reason to why, other than just sort of abstract ideas. And so it's hard because I think you use these benefits that you are entitled to, but they don't match up to the reality of people's lives. So if you make a little bit more money, they take away, let's say, your EBT, but you haven't made enough money to really cover that. Inflation has been such that you can't. I think a study showed that nowhere in the United States can you afford a 2-bedroom apartment on a regular salary, or an hourly salary. And so it's not set up to be like, even if you get a job and you become over the threshold, you're still sort of shit out of luck in terms of being able to afford your own place. The math is not mathing. And so it's this failure of structures that then become even more failure because the people in them or the people in charge of them believe that these people are a lost cause, or that they can't be trusted to have, even the thing of, why don't we make empty hotels, like during COVID, why don't we make empty hotels available to people on the street? Well, you can't trust them. And it's like, okay, but how do they begin to gain trust? And also, why don't you trust them? Disabled people are not able to get married because if they make above a $2,000 income, their disability is taken away. How does that encourage people to even raise their own income or to move in with someone and have the benefit of being married and get the tax credits for being married, et cetera, et cetera? I think these programs are definitely needed. And also, I think the ways that you get out of the foster care system and they're like, good luck. It's just not comparable. And I think your write-up talks about being for millennials. And I think there's a big difference with millennials and Gen Zs thinking about these types of things than maybe their parents. If you were working at one of those big four firms, you're working with, the parents more so than the millennials and Gen Z, I imagine.
Yeah. And the reason, that I targeted and, mostly work with millennials is because first is a few things. Number one, being a small business owner in today's society is normalized beyond reason, right? Like going to college is almost not a mandatory thought of somebody graduating high school, because we got people, on TikTok making a lot of money, YouTube making a lot of money, podcasts making a lot of money. So now millennials and beyond are starting to see, well, maybe going to college, maybe I don't have to do that. Maybe I don't have to be a cog in the system and work 40 hours a week for 40 years so I can retire at 65 when my knees barely work and I can barely have fun. Like, people are starting to open their eyes and be like, oh, well, actually, I can make money doing something that I love and not have to follow the normal system that my parents had to follow.
You're not rewarded for following it, as you said.
You are not, because I personally think the system is flawed. What the system was designed to do was to make you go to college to get into a lot of debt. Then when you have to get a job to pay off the debt, and by the time you get close to paying off the debt, they convince you to buy a house, and now you got to pay off the house and student loans, so you can never quit the job now. And now you're on a 30-year mortgage. So now by the time you pay off the mortgage, guess what? You're a retirement. You can finally retire, but they got 40 years of labor out of you, and you can enjoy your life when you can barely move, right? So that was, for me, a systemic program that they wanted to put us all through. So I am really, really happy and confident now in this generation and beyond to understand that you don't have to take that route, right? You can become your own boss. You can do your own work, but I don't want people being penalized by starting their own thing and be like, well, I don't want to handle the tax stuff. I don't want to handle the business setup. So I'm just going to stay at this job because I don't want to do all that. No, there are people that are out there that can help take that off your plate so you can stay in your zone of genius and do what you love the most.
Do you like when people engage with you or want to talk about this stuff? Because you always hear about businesses having a shady accountant and they don't pay attention to anything, and then the accountant runs off with their money. So do you like bringing people in that you're working with and saying, okay, here's what I'm doing?
Yeah. So I believe that education is one of the best things you can do for your clients and just, anybody around you, because information changes situations. And so I'm a huge favor of always having these conversations, because although you should hire somebody to do the implementation, you should still have a basic enough understanding so that you know what's going on. Because what happened, the story that people losing money from their financial advisors or CPAs because they just blindly trusted that person. And I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your CPA. I'm just saying you should understand enough what's going on so that you are comfortable if you want to make the switch or if you want to ask the proper questions. But if you don't have any context, you can't ask the proper questions. So I do think it's very important that people in my space educate the people that they're working with so they can have the confidence and understanding what's going on.
I've never had an accountant who wasn't the most brusque person I've ever encountered. I've had 3 accountants and they've all just talked to me like I'm asking the dumbest question I've ever asked in my life. Or they talk like everything's an emergency. Like I'll get an email that's like, please send this. And I'll be like, oh, is it an emergency? No, it's due in 3 weeks. But it's just I don't know, some mode of communication where it's just designed to stress me out the most way possible. And I do push through because I am me. So I do push through and ask a lot of questions. I remember with some of my accountants that I've had, if I've gone in, and I said this in my book to do it, is to be like, can I record this conversation? Because I'm not listening in the moment. I'm having a dissociative panic attack. I need to be able to listen back to it. And most of them have been like, sure, mostly because they probably don't want to hear from me again. But I do ask very obvious questions because everything that I hear back is convoluted or spoken to me like I should already know this because I'm 36 years old. Yeah, I ask a lot of very obvious questions, and it is one of the people in my life who is most likely to reply in a very brusque manner.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about the space. And again, most CPAs are older and introverted, so they don't like talking to people, period. It's unfortunate that they make their clients feel that way, but that is the reality. And I think the only dumb question is an unasked question. So I encourage people to ask their CPA as many questions as they want to. And if they don't answer your question, do they deserve your money? And that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah. If they send me something that has like an acronym, I want to know what that acronym is. I want to know what it means. I want to know what's going on. Even the young ones, the level of communication is very, and look, I have a different kind of autism, but I'm like, God damn, the level of just like the email is just okay with a period. Oh, you want me dead? You hate my guts? Like, it's just like, I don't know. So it's a job that you're hiring the person for, but for some reason I live in fear of that.
Very common, very common.
I think I just don't want to be in trouble. And for some reason, a CPA, I feel like I'm in trouble.
Yeah. No, and again, you're not the only person that has these sentiments. And so one of the things that we do that really helped us and all our clients, this is a little extreme, but we don't let clients hire us until they take our 5-day training. So me and my business partner, who's a financial advisor, any client that wants to hire us, we have a 5-day, we host a 5-day live virtual training every month or every other month. And the only way you can hire us is if you go through this training, because that's how serious we are about our clients being educated on the front end. Because when you educate your clients on the front end, they actually ask less questions on the back end. Right. So they feel empowered and educated because we condense decades into days and give them all these light bulb moments and these epiphany moments. And after those 5 days, okay, now that you understood what we're going to be doing and how we help you, now you can hire us. And what we end up finding out is that they're so educated on the front end, they don't have any more questions on the back end. So we're actually able to educate the masses and also make our business more scalable because our clients don't reach out to us that often because they fully understand what's going on.
If the IRS, it's interesting. I spoke to a guy from the Tax Foundation who mid-conversation, we realized that his libertarian ideas and my socialist ideas did end up in the same place, but had wildly different paths to get there. And the idea was he thought the IRS should be disassembled. And I was like, well, the reason they don't do that is because it would kill an entire industry. And now they're using AI to do TurboTax. And, do you think that there's something you can't really either get rid of it or replace it with sending your P&L to a computer? You know what I mean?
I've thought about this before, and my conclusion is that the IRS as a symbol is probably one of the only things that are keeping people honest about what they report on their tax return, right? Fear is for better or for worse, it's a teacher and it is a regulation tool. And so because the IRS has painted themselves as this scary organization, it is a preventative measure of people falsifying the identification or information on their tax return. And due to the fact that we have substantially more people that need to file tax returns than people that can review them, I think there, at least in the short term, in this term, has to be a symbol of regulatory fear that if you falsify evidence, you will be penalized. So that is my conclusion on why I think that we still have the IRS and why the IRS isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, I hope that they target the right people. I assume that they do. I mean, in some capacity, but
the problem is this. The IRS, at least my conclusion, would like to target the richest and wealthiest people to audit them. Because if they audit them and they're right, they can stand to win the most amount of money. Problem with that is the richest people have the best attorneys and CPAs. So the odds are that they have the team that can fight or at least keep the battle open long enough where it will waste the resources. And the people with less money and don't have access to those teams, the IRS sends people their way because although they probably can get less money per case, the cases don't last as long and are easier to solve. So I think that is the dichotomy that we're facing. And it's not right or wrong. It's just the reality of the world. And unfortunately, that's where we're at today.
Like knock on wood all over them. So I would, if the every time they send me mail, I have to like psych myself up to open it. And then it'll just be like, hey, do you know, da da da. And I'll be like, do you understand the level of panic I had to open this email, this letter that could have been an email? Anyway, well, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you and your work?
Yes, so it is Cofield_advisor on Instagram, but our company is called Melanin Money. You can just Google on YouTube, and we put out a lot of videos every day. It's financial education, and our goal is to super serve people of color and help them become first generation millionaires.
What a great name!
Thank you. It was my business partner's idea. I give him credit for it. One of the best things he's done.
Bad with Money with Gabriel S. Dunn is a production of Noted Bisexual, produced by Melisa D. Monts and Diamond MPrint Productions. Edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Llorens, production assistance by Melanie D. Watson, and music by Mike Kaplan, Zach Sherwin, and Jack Dolgen, sung by Sam Barbera. Thank you, love you, bye!
Are you looking for legit ways to make extra money? Our friends at the Side Hustle Show have put together this cool free 60-second quiz to help you do just that. All you got to do is go to hustle.show. You can do it right from your phone. Answer a few short multiple choice questions, and it'll recommend a few episodes of the hit Side Hustle Show podcast to start with. You can add your personalized Side Hustle Show playlist to your device, learn what works, and start making more money today. Again, that's at hustle.show, or follow the award-winning Side Hustle Show in your favorite podcast app.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bell. Carvana makes car buying easy. Isn't that right, hun? Dax?
Sorry, did you know about this 7-day money-back guarantee?
A week to evaluate seat comfiness, you say?
A week of terrain tests? Yeah, I can test the brake pad resistance at variable speeds.
Make sure all the kids' stuff fits nicely.
Make sure our stuff fits nicely.
Oh,
Right. Still need to buy the car. Getting ahead of ourselves here.
Buy your car with Carvana today.